Well, good afternoon or good morning to wherever you are in the world. Thank you to everyone for joining and attending this webinar called 5 Ways to Monetize Integrated Payments. Getting going here on the slide deck. Briefly, just wanted to really introduce Wind River, our company, and then me, myself, and my role, and really kind of set the stage or the table, if you will, for what we really intend to cover today. Wind River is a roughly 25-year-old payments company. We're based up in Madison, Wisconsin. We're privately held and family owned. And again, as I mentioned, our core business is integrated payments. There is a definite change in landscape and really a convergence that we're seeing in our industry, and specifically with the software industry, where end users or merchants who are maybe historically used to going to their bank or some other means of direct to a payment provider like a Wind River is really shifting towards they're looking for more integrated applications to make their lives easier, drive more efficiency. And that's created this really unique and exciting, from our perspective, environment and opportunity for both payment companies and software companies to kind of come together and build really cool and exciting products. Me specifically, again, my name is Pete Usselman. I've been with Wind River for over 12 years now. That's hard to believe and say out loud. My primary role here at Wind River is I'm the integrated payments channel manager. So I'm not really as much on the sales side. I work more with our existing partners that choose to, formulate a partnership with, and then really work and deploy our strategic plan, help guide the product roadmap, help implement strategies really to grow and kind of back on the theme of today's topic, generating revenue for both of our organizations. Well, last quick thing I just mentioned is, again, we're family owned and privately held, and really see that as a unique differentiator in the industry. Hopefully this isn't too salesy, but really where we've tried to strategically differentiate our organization is through being here for the long haul. And again, my father, Matt, started the company with his brother-in-law, Mark, back in '99. They both came from super large banks, one on the trust and investment side, the other actually ran the payments business for a larger bank that's now been acquired. And we really saw the opportunity at that time to do a couple things. Primarily, one, create technology and an experience and a culture for our employees that really aligned with what we wanted for our family and our team. So I'm the second generation, and we've again committed to be a sustainable long-term business by maintaining our privately held status and our family ownership. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. We'll get in the meat of today in terms of why are we here? What are we talking about today? So a couple of things. Obviously, as I teed up in the earlier remarks, right? You are all software companies. You're looking, as one part of your strategic play is generation of revenue. We have a whole host of other topics on webinars, from product to PCI security to other, service and support type area levels. But today we're going to specifically talk about revenue, which is, again, one of the big factors that we like to share with our prospective partners and our partners around why monetizing payments is a big deal. So what we'll talk about specifically there is kind of just start with a quick payment monetization 101 and hopefully introduce or reintroduce the Schedule A, which again is the primary document that will really govern your revenue share agreement with your payment provider, with your prospective payment provider. We really want to share 5 strategies after that kind of table has been set around potential ideas or new things we could introduce, value adds to try to grow your revenue from integrated payments. Again, assuming this comes in many different forms, and we've had other webinars on this where it's all over the board in terms of how payment companies and software applications are partnering to deliver that integrated experience. So we'll kind of get into some of that as well in terms of some of these strategies that we want to introduce. And then lastly, just some kind of broader thoughts in terms of thinking bigger around monetization and some other things that we've seen successful there. I'll mention my colleague Brenna is on the call from our fantastic marketing department. So if you have a question while you're going through any of this stuff, please don't hesitate to type in the chat box, and then we'll have some time at the end of the call today to kind of go through those questions and get them answered. And my contact info will be on the back of the webinar. So take a screenshot of that or just jot down my email. I'm happy to pull things offline if you don't feel comfortable asking a question. So that's kind of the agenda for today. So as I mentioned before, just again, kind of a payment monetization 101. Some of you guys may already have experience with payments. Other of you are just getting into it. Ultimately, kind of a ubiquitous, more uniform term in the industry, in the payment industry, is the Schedule A. And the Schedule A is something that will accompany your specific agreement with your payment processor. And it does a couple of important things specific to kind of governing that relationship. So first and foremost, it's really going to outline the structure of how you generate revenue. And this is really closely tied with a couple of things we'll talk about in the strategies or the ideas, but it typically centers around, how much of an active role are you taking in the process? What's your approach to exclusivity with your payment provider? What's the actual tangible form of revenue share? So again, is it buy rate or is it more of a revenue share model? And there's some pros and cons where we could probably spend a full webinar on just this slide today. But the main thing is it structures how you generate the revenue. It also calls out, specific line items or elements of fees that are shareable versus not are shareable. We'll have a couple comments on that in a second, but that's an important thing to kind of go through and really have a good understanding. So it might say this fee is in, this is out, or all these are in, all these are out. So it'll kind of really dictate that. Again, I mentioned this a little bit before, but again, back to structure, amount above the buy rate, what is the applicable percentage? And again, another key idea here is this is often a tiered approach based on, I don't want to say commitments, but volume, right? So kind of back to the idea of, are you buying a single can of Coke versus a case versus a pallet? There's going to be incentives that are really volume or performance driven, which are important to understand as you're approaching that. So all this was just a very succinct way to try to tie up really what is the Schedule A and kind of give you a little bit of background or framework for the document that really kind of governs. So with that knowledge, we'll kind of transition into the 5 strategies that we really want to introduce and just create awareness around. And hopefully there's a few of these things you could either take back to your business today or could create fodder for some other discussion. But strategy number 1 is really tied to what I just went through, which is beware of the Schedule A sleight of hand. And I'll just say this, I would be the first to admit that the payment industry, doesn't always have the best reputation in terms of transparency, around clarity, around how fees are calculated and how much. And I would say there's a general overall lack of distrust in the industry and concern candidly over, deceptive fee practices. And so part of our MO is to try to go to market with partners that understand that and then, help them make clear differentiation around their product and, building a level of trust. However, all that said, a couple of things that we really recommend is back to negotiation of the Schedule A. And so I would just say, have a very clear understanding of what's in that Schedule A and what's out. An analogy we like to use with merchants is the cable bill model, right? Where they're feeling a sense of frustration over maybe signing up for a standard package of cable, TV, and internet, and you're paying $150 for the first year of your agreement. Fast forward to 6, 12, 18 months from there, you're paying $250, and somewhere in that language was written on that you were receiving an introductory rate, or there was the ability to change pricing after that. But I would have a very clear understanding of how long these terms are, restrict permissionable added fees, percentage of revenue share, and how they change. And I would just say it's something that we recommend monitoring on an ongoing basis, meaning a very simple calculation we tell our customers, so the end customers using your software, our mutual customer, is really to take a simple calculation of fees divided by volume. It's very relevant and salient to do that for you as a provider, to take revenue divided by volume and really track at a high level your overall spread, or that percentage based amount, to make sure it's following in conjunction with what you thought and what's outlined in the Schedule A. And if you're not sure, ask to see the math. I mean, that's a very reasonable question. And we've seen through a number of very recent conversations with prospective partners that there really isn't a lot of revenue share transparency. They thought they were getting paid on A when they were actually getting paid on B. And so some of those same deceptive practices have kind of trickled their way upstream into the partner channel sale, which obviously we don't like to see. But it's a very good starting point for a software application to say, let's at least get a common ground and understanding of how these revenue share elements are really calculated. A second idea or strategy that we really wanted to introduce was the ability to assess your own platform integration fee. This would be outside of anything negotiated with your payment provider on a Schedule A or a pure revenue share agreement. I actually don't know any other competitors of Wind River that is really doing this today. But this would be creating the ability for you to put a line item on our statements that we would bill for with respect to the payment revenue, where you would be able to realize 100% of that fee line revenue. And again, we're not trying to charge or recommend charging people to overcharge them. We're really suggesting, compensating you for your value that you're creating within this integrated payment environment, meaning, the disparity between doing payments in a separate application, posting them back, reconciling, remitting it, all those pain points that come, that you're and we are solving together for a prospective end user or end merchant, directly monetizing for that effort. Obviously, there's costs that payment providers are trying to recover, but this is a different way that you're able to directly monetize and charge specifically for the users of those specific features on your software. So kind of a unique opportunity. Again, just to I'll try to share some examples of these are actual strategies that we've implemented with current partners today. We have a larger partner in the billing space, that recently, went through an initiative to, do a major upgrade of their platform. It cost them, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. On the output of that, obviously, was a much seamless and more better payment experience for their customers, and then their end customers are payers of them. And so that, again, created this justification or, ROI for the customers, where, these merchants really didn't even bat an eye at this upgrade for their system, really because of the value and ROI that it really created. So assessing a platform fee integration fee is a really good idea. A third idea that we like to share is really to consider a white label payments program. So white label, I know we're obviously all probably familiar with it, but again, in some of my intro remarks, we talked about this convergence. of payment companies and software. And I really look at it like it's on a spectrum. And we've had other webinars that talk about, this journey that software companies go on with respect to payments. Usually they start out and just integrate a gateway and say, hey, go work with whoever you want. And then they're kind of get some exclusivity after they've maybe had some pain from that, or, potentially realize the money that they could make off of payments. And really the next evolution of that is really a white label payments program where you're really working with a provider like Wind River that really sits in the background, allows you to retain all of your own branding, and you allow, just getting buy rates from your provider, which would allow you to generate the most amount of revenue. In turn, there is additional work to take on to do that, in terms of building out the sales experience, building out a customer service area to support that, identifying or taking on the idea if you want to manage risk. And so again, this bullet item is a much larger webinar on its own, but it's a good strategy to be aware of and put on your strategic roadmap in terms of, where are we at in that, I'll call it journey, or, if we're just getting into payments, probably not a good strategy. If we've been doing this for a while and we're looking for, ways to increase revenue, and we think we can take the capacity on to service it, that may be a strategy. So again, we say walk before running. And then the last thing is just thinking about how, it drives the customer experience. Again, we have a partner that we've been working with for, I think, since I joined was the year that we formed our partnership. So for 12 years, they really started out where, they were essentially lobbing referrals over to the fence. Hey, we don't really know what we're doing. We can connect your payment devices to our point of sale application and route payments to you, but we want you to explain fees. We want you to explain PCI security. We want you to be the level 1 support to our customers. Over time, they really, became more comfortable and, valued and trained. We were able to train them and work together to where, they now have, made 3.5 to 4x in terms of money, because they're really doing 90 to 95% of the work, in terms of onboarding and supporting customers on a day-to-day basis. So that has been a real profit center for this company, and that jump made sense for them. I'll just mention this before we talk about items 3 and 4. I would just say a couple software companies usually at some point in time are faced with this decision, right? And I kind of alluded to it before, like, are you going to be exclusive with a payment company, or are you taking the approach to say, you know what, you can use whoever you want, or they're feeling pressure from their customers that they're putting on them. There's a lot of factors that go into that, in terms of the size of the customer, the cost of your software, all the sales cycle of your software. So we see varying levels of, I'll almost call it confidence of the software provider to be really able to dictate or allocate who their customers really use. Again, if you're on a white label kind of a model, you're able to really, I'll call it build in that frictionless experience to where, it may be transparent to the customer. And again, depending on those things I mentioned, size, it may or may not, be an issue for you. But I would just say this. So number 4 and 5, I kind of wanted to set that backdrop, because we do see some companies that are kind of struggling and may have a provider, may get a pushback from their customers occasionally where, they say, hey, we have to use our bank, or we have to use this company who is tied to us. And I would say, a good strategy there is obviously your goal is trying to get everyone on your preferred vendor or your exclusive provider, if at all possible. The trade-off there is you don't really want to lose a deal, or, lose a client as a new software, if that really is a deal breaker for them. So what we like to tell people is, consider a model where there's dual pricing, and it really explaining and walking the customer through it where, there's complexity, there's nuance to it. So, based on having one partner, you're able to streamline and simplify, a large, kind of process for this, for within your partner. And then, there's a different cost to support a non-preferred partner. And you guys need to get, you need to generate revenue off that to cover your costs. So, I would say when it's positioned that way to customers, most people understand. It's rare, it's occasionally, that you're able to identify a customer that has some covenant tied to a commercial loan, or, they have to use their specific bank. 99% of those issues can really be worked through. And then really, if you're trying to direct them to, the payment provider where you're generating the most on your Schedule A, if they're using someone else, that's not a great strategy for you. So trying to direct them or almost encouraging them on the front end is a great strategy, and deterring them from processing outside your software. Some use cases we definitely acknowledge, like it's impossible for you to process a payment outside of your software. It could be like an e-commerce, or, more of like a, billing application. For maybe a point of sale system, right? You could run a terminal in conjunction with that. But then again, back to positioning, some of the disadvantages or things you lose as a result of giving up that integration. The last one, the last strategy that we really want to recommend is, is to implement feature differentiation. Okay, and what I really mean by that is, again, we see for these providers or these software applications that are struggling, with maybe multiple payment gateway integrations, or multiple payment providers, and they're really wanting to look at how to direct customers, or how to limit that, or how to start to rein that in. Feature differentiation is a great way to begin to do that. And I'll give you an example of another partner that we used. A common, or maybe within the payment industry, specific for B2B transactions, there's something called level 2 and 3 pricing, where for certain business to business cards, you're really able to identify or pass additional data that's really relevant, along with like a purchasing card, a commercial card, a corporate card, so that you're able to save your customers a significant amount of money on some of these like B2B or B2G type transactions. And so as a way to almost like price protect us meaning Wind River and this partner, as well as them, essentially, right? Because they're sharing in a large amount of the revenue. They offered us feature protection on this level 2 and 3. And so by way of doing that, it really made a price comparison much more palatable for the end merchant when they were going to make a decision around, what provider they were going to use, because we knew that by way of a lot of these, B2B cards, they weren't able to do it. Now, what that would mean was we had a leg up in the sales, area right out of the gate, and we knew we had a competitive advantage. And again, if a customer still wants to use that bank, the software company said, hey, yeah, we'll still give them that ability to do it. But again, you're giving up something in order to do it. And so that is a very key idea. And there's a million different examples of how you could do this based on your specific vertical that your software serves, or your specific segment of customers, and what they really look like. I think we just had some closing remarks here as it regards to payment, monetization. I would just say this comment is more in regards to, having transparency. We just want to make people aware that, we don't want their customers to suffer at the cost of, rate increases to their end customers, right? That makes them look bad. And so this is, again, it makes you look bad as a software provider for recommending a processor. And again, ultimately leads to a poor customer experience. So this is kind of back to, reinforcement of why the strategy piece is so important, with your partner, and really, where are you guys trying to go, and what is the monetization strategy of your company? Because again, if it's not being reined in or honed in, I mean, we can think of dozens of examples here with software companies that we've been talking to, where it's like our customer hates payment processor A, and it's causing us some big problems here. They feel like they're getting run around, they're not getting support, they're getting fee increases. And so that's, again, what we're trying to talk about is just one piece of that revenue pie. And again, I mean, bad experience, right, leads to attrition and a loss of customers, which is obviously not where any of us are trying to go. This is just kind of a exercise to say, consider, lifetime value. Again, would you rather have a sustainable revenue for more customers or shorter revenue spikes from fewer customers? That's obviously a no-brainer, but I think a fair and good example for what I was just really talking through. So again, just wanted to summarize here the strategies that we really talked about. Negotiate, monitor, and be aware of the terms in your Schedule A. Create your own payment integration fee for your unique value. Consider a white label program now or at some point in the future, and how does that fit in with your strategy? Deter customers from processing outside of your platform if that's a potential use case that exists, and figure out how to direct and steer them to use your integration, and then implement feature differentiation to really support, initiative strategy number 4. This is a horrific picture of me, but again, as I mentioned, my contact info is on here, so feel free to call, text, or shoot me any email. As a result that may come up now. We'll take a quick pause here, and I'll ask Brenna to gather some of the questions, and I'll have her ask those to me now.
Okay, Pete, we have one. Do you see software companies implementing multiple of these strategies?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yep. It absolutely. And they can be worked in tandem or conjunction. I think, as I mentioned before, one of the examples I provided was a company using, both of those strategies really to create feature differentiation, and then, a platform fee really to monetize for the features that they've created and additional value and ROI that they're providing for their customers. So absolutely. And I think it's a really good question. Other questions, Brenna?
I think that is all we've got.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to everyone for taking the time to join us today. We greatly appreciate it. Again, my contact info is here. So if you would welcome an additional conversation, and I know the recording of this presentation will be sent out as well. So thank you to everyone again. Have a great rest of your day.